Pretty simple, you guys. Welcome back to the Hometown Hustle. This is episode 13. We are here today with Brad Converse of Bradley Putters. Mr. Boutique Putter himself just was recently featured in Forbes magazine, which is
Forbes Online.
Forbes Online.
Yeah,
oh, that's different.
It's different.
It's totally
There's
different.
a lot of articles online, and
Well, we can dive into that, but I'm super pumped to have you. I've admired you and your business from afar for quite a while, and fortunately, we had a conversation a couple months ago. I was able to acquire 2 of your putters for some clients of mine, and I'm glad we have you on here. This is pretty cool.
Glad we can make that happen, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is a very nice space. You've done very well. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Feel very at home.
We just you should be honored too, because you're the first guest that we've had since the remodel.
Since Nick, right?
What's that?
Wasn't Nick your last
Yes,
one?
it's Nick Yates. Yeah, no, absolutely. We decided to do something different. I guess it's important to touch on, since this is, if people that followed us in the past, Michael doesn't work with me anymore, so he's not on the podcast any longer. But
that wasn't retaliation. It was a coincidence thing.
Yeah,
right? The way you said it, he doesn't work with me. He's not on the podcast.
Yeah, I fired him. It had nothing to do
separate.
with that. No, Michael did his own thing.
Then he found a couple suckers to fill in, so that's what me and Dan.
Yeah, that's right.
We can't say no.
Comic relief. That's
Cute
it.
faces.
Yeah. So now my co-hosts now are Lawton LeSueur of Midland Empire Insurance here in Grants Pass, and then
Hello.
and Mr. Dan Doyle of Nations Lending, both of which these 2 guys are some of my best friends, and if not my 2 best friends. So, and then we're gonna do another segment on this podcast which is more focused around real estate, and so the other person on my team is Robin Lasky. He'll join us for those. And then we'll kick Lawton off and have him just do the community stuff. So, yeah.
Robin with a Y.
Robin with a Y, yeah.
Right.
Like Batman's buddy. So he would like that. So anyway, he introduces himself like that. They're like, Robin? Yeah, Robin, like Batman's buddy. And so he gets a good laugh at that.
That's perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it like a sidekick? Not really. Is it buddy?
I like how he says buddy rather than sidekick.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool,
Okay.
That's just what he says, man. So
Can't follow that.
anyway, let's stop with the nonsense here. I want to get right into it. For those who don't know you, give us a brief overview of your company and what you do currently.
Yeah. So Bradley Putter Company, I make ridiculously custom putters, like to a ridiculous level. A lot of golfers who think of custom putter think of like, stamping their name on the back or something. I'll take your dog's hair and like sprinkle that in there. I'll take, I just made one for a guy who is the squadron leader, I think, for the Mountain Home Air Force Base. And I literally like 3D printed a F-15, painted the tail flags on there, have that going over a treasure map looking base that like looks, you've got Guam, Hawaii, and the U.S. and a bunch of little sea monsters and stuff. I mean, my specialty is taking a story that you want to tell and turning that into a putter that will kind of beg that story when you're out on the course. So when people pull my putters out, they always get questions about them, and there's always an interesting story that, if you're doing sales or if you're just playing with your buddies and just want to have something cool to show off, my putters do that better than anything else out there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But they're not just showpieces too. I mean, they can play.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, my background's in engineering, so my first goal was make a putter out of a gorgeous material like, burl wood that plays really well, and I figured out all the different ways of doing that, and then people started telling me how often they were getting asked about the putter, and that's when I realized I could write their own story into the putter, and then every week I'd get a new request like, hey, I don't know if this is possible, but, and I'd have to figure out a way to do it, and almost 6 years later, we just keep getting a little bit better every week.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. What's the most random request you've gotten so far?
I mean, I get a ton of crazy requests. The most random, I was in Bermuda playing in like the World Par 3 Championship, and there was a guy from the East Coast there, and he asked if I could make a putter out of a chair. And I was like, I mean, probably. Like, why? He's like, well, I was in Iraq, and I was part of the team that raided one of Saddam's castles, and I smuggled back the cushion of a chair. And I'm like, no way. Okay, sure. And so he sent me like the fabric, and then he sent me like some of the wood pieces from it. Put wood on the face, wood on the bottom. I saw like there was like this red stuff on there. I'm like, dude, is that blood? And like, no, it's hot sauce. Like I used it as like and so yeah, I pleated it around and made it look super cool. And yeah, I made a putter out of Saddam Hussein's chair for the guy. And then he was playing in New York at like Tom Brady's club. Like you can't have cell phones, no electronics out there, in a really fancy military scramble tournament. And by the 18th hole, word of this putter had gone through the caddies. And so he got invited up to talk in front of everybody at like the award ceremony afterwards. And they asked, he got a chance to tell his story about his time in his service and all that because of this putter I made for him.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Have you had one you can't make yet?
No. There was one that I couldn't make until a few months ago, the Maryland flag. So if you haven't seen that, it's stupid. It's
a cool flag.
Like puzzle pieces and offset things. And I had someone, they'd asked me for a while, and like I could, laser engrave and fill with resin, like I could make the color, but I don't know how to do that. Like there's too many weird pieces. I just don't know how to do that. And then they kept asking, and I realized that one of the pieces was like complicated, but then it was inside of a square. And so what I could do was pour that complicated piece, move it over into a square piece, pour the second color, and then do 4 of those, glue them all together, and then create the other piece, offset, like do diagonal cuts, offset that, put it all together, and then make the putter. So yeah, that was one that I said no for a long time, and then figured out I actually could do that.
So how many hours does it take to make like a putter like that?
That's a complicated question to answer. So of actual hands-on time for that one, I spent probably, 20 to 30 hours, somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. But that one took a couple
trial and error kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that one I did pretty, like, it was pretty linear, the process, because I'd made so many mistakes previously to figure that out. But that one took a long time of just on the front end of, like, doing the 3D prints, pouring the molds, pouring the acrylic into those molds, moving them over, gluing everything together. Like, there's a lot of the steps require cure time, which, is 24 hours every time. And so I'll touch it for, an hour, and then it has to cure for the next day. Then I'll touch it for another hour, so it has to cure for the next day. But yeah, I mean, and then there's other ones where I will say, I know I can do this, I just don't know how I'm going to do it yet. And it will sit. Like, I had to do one, a guy wanted a theater fabric putter. Like, he wanted it to look like the theater was, the curtains opening up.
Open.
Right.
That's cool.
And I was like, okay, I know I can do that. Just give me time. Like, I'll figure it out. And so I literally played with that, like, every other day, just here and there, try this, try that. Nothing worked. And then I finally figured out the right way to pleat it. I had to get it wet with alcohol, like, rubbing alcohol first. To get the right consistency of it wasn't felt, because like you want it to look like it's felt, but on a miniature scale. Mm-hmm. And so, want it like thick velvet, but you actually need something really thin, but that isn't too thin. So I found that at Joann's and then started playing with it. And I literally, for a month straight, just every like I'd walk by it every day, and then every other day I would just try something else till finally it worked. But then I had to do it symmetrically to the other side. Mm-hmm. And that one, I mean, there's plenty of putters that I have lost money on, and I've been fine doing it because it's marketing, it's learning cool, fast methods. Because now I'm very fast at what I do, and there are very few things someone could ask me to do that I wouldn't be able to do right away. Like, I was just working on, I do a lot of artwork where people will send me either like a cool image from, the cabin they grew up in or their favorite vacation spot. And I used to, just all the different methods I need to know to be able to do that well are not straightforward. Like, they're obvious once you like know what I'm doing, but to figure that out it's stupid. And so, like, there are things that would take me a month to figure out, and now I can do it in like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing the amount of, so coming in here today and just kind of seeing all the promotions and everything that you did, all the marketing, late consumer, he throws stuff in a lathe. Right, goes around, does it, and all of a sudden it comes out this great product or whatever the case may be. So the amount of time and the hands-on, that's intense.
Fully handmade. I mean, I'll use a other than the laser engraver, every piece of machinery I've got is like a few $100 or less. Like it's a drill press, it's a belt sander, it's a bandsaw. I mean, it's all really simple machinery. Like other than my laser, there's nothing that could go down that I'd be like, oh shoot, I have to like take a loan out to get that. It's like, no, I'll go down to, wherever, just go to Diamond and grab a new one and get back up and running, because it's not like, there's no CNC making the shape of this, because each one has to be a little bit different. I have to, with the way the materials work, I have to just adjust stuff all the time. And so I just decided I'd get really good with my hands, and now I can just do it fast. It's faster than CNC, honestly.
Wow. It's really amazing.
Yeah. So is there like a spot in the future? I mean, part of the sales of it is that it's handmade, it's this. But do you ever see that going to the next scalability? Like, do you ever envision this and say, okay, at some point, here's our 20 best sellers, and now I'm going to mechanize the process and then go from there? Or is this something that's going to stay as true as it is now?
It's been an interesting process. Early on, every business book out there is on scaling and on going to the next level, and I tried going that route early on, had a bunch of employees on, and my product is confusing to people. Like when someone sees a wood putter and something that looks this pretty, unless they've actually hit one, they instantly think that that's just for the guy, like putting it up on the wall. There's no way that plays well. Even though people replace, any putter out there with mine all the time, they won't just believe that from almost any marketing. So it's a slow play. It's a lot of Instagram stories, a lot of reels. It's a lot of, there has to be a lot of contact points. It's a lot of reviews. I've got 33 some 5-star reviews on Google. Everyone loves me, but it takes a lot of trust in order for someone to realize, like, I will make you a sick putter out of wood and acrylic that will play better than your Scotty. Like, telling that to someone first blush, they'll say, no, you can't do that. So when it comes to like having products that would sell in, a pro shop or at, Golf Galaxy or something, that's just not this. And so I've tried I've experimented with going the scale route, and I've realized what I like doing is working very hands-on with each individual person and making them something that is priceless. Like I've made putters for, one guy said he's seen his dad cry twice in his life at funerals, and when he gave him this putter that had like these shillelaghs in it, which are I think Irish, but like they're like walking stick things that you can like hit wolves if you need to. Like they're really cool little things. But I took like that wood, put it in there, made the putter, and when he gave it to his dad, he said he cried for the third time he'd ever seen him cry. That's what I like doing. And so if someone just is buying a putter in a pro shop, I don't know who that person is. There's no connection there. There's no story other than, oh yeah, I bought this at a pro shop. Like, yeah, my putters, I want them to tell a ridiculously cool story every time they pull it out of their bag. And that has to happen with, half-hour conversation on the phone, ideally in person, but that rarely gets to happen since we're kind of middle of nowhere.
Is there a way to do that and still mass produce stuff? I mean, like these, you make a lot like this, right? Like the burl wood with the beautiful acrylic and all that kind of stuff. And then you make the ones that are like custom sand dollars, F8, F15s, shillelaghs, all that kind of stuff. Is there a way to mass produce these and get them out to the world and then still have like a custom element to it? Is that what you were getting at?
No, I think there's too much conviction in what he does to do the scalability. So I think there probably is a route, right? I think everybody could do that. But what I'm seeing from you when you talk about these is there's conviction about what you're building as a product for a client.
Yeah, and there's just price points too. Like, the burl wood itself, the acrylic itself, like, 2 gallons of this stuff's like $200. Like, it's none of these materials are cheap. And so even if I were to build these at scale, people would still be spending, especially, having to then do a markup by, going through Pro Shop. No one's going to be like, oh, cool, yeah, I'll spend $750 on a random wooden putter. It's beautiful, but it still, doesn't have the pros backing it. Like, there's, it's a nut I did try to crack. I'm not saying I was too good for it. I tried cracking it, but it's the marketing budget that would be necessary for that would require massive volume, and I would still be wanting to do those stories. So I couldn't do the volume side and do the hands-on. A lot of it's come down to, I know what I like to do in life and what I want to do, and I want to have time for my family, time for my kids, and I want to be challenged every day with interesting designs. And I mean, my past life was doing R&D for military contractors. So I had to program in like a dozen different languages, had to solve the most crazy problems that my boss would come up with. And it was always interesting, but I never got to interface with with the customer, with the person who's going to be the end user very much. You'd work with some government people that still weren't the end user. They were just the people that were doing the purchasing. And that wasn't fun for me. With this, I'm talking to either the person who's getting it or the person who's gifting it. And within like a month or two, they'll have it in their hands and they'll write me the most gushing review about how amazing the process was and how amazing their putter is. And I'll get messages from people I made a putter for years ago saying I was playing in the Bermuda Pro-Am and I sunk a 100-footer and everyone cheered and it was awesome. And he did that with a putter that was made from Bermuda cedar from Bermuda. His dad used to make cabinets and really really cool stuff. And so he wanted a putter that was made out of Bermuda cedar and I could do that for him. And now he sends me messages all the time. I've been to his house. Like every one of these putters that I do, I know exactly who I'm making it for. I've got the story of it. It's all up here. And then I also use software. I automated everything so I can do that because as soon as an order comes in, like I built my entire website myself. I have all these automation tools that as soon as the order comes in, the metadata automatically gets parsed out and put into a database to track all the stuff I need to do purchasing for. It takes me like 15 minutes a week to do purchasing because everything's tracked right there for me. I can check where things are at. And then I've got a software called Trello, so every client can follow along every step of the way as I'm making their putter. I'm taking pictures, I'm showing them exactly what's happening. And then and I tell people all the time, I'm making you a putter that's literally never existed before. And if I'm off the mark, you're going to know right away. And you can say, oh, actually, let's change this, let's change that. And no worries because I'm literally making you something that's never existed before.
Yeah, I think forget the whole mass producing question. I think you're on the right track.
There's enough people out there. Musty Putters does mass production wood putters, and they're your Camry of wood putters. They'll put Pebble Beach on it, like they'll put Bandit on it. Like they're really good for those the people that are like, oh, I want to get my boss a random wood putter.
Yeah.
My putters are for when the boss wants to get their best salesman a ridiculous putter. Like I'm the Bentley, the Lambo of wood putters. I don't want to be mass market. I want to just make stupidly, ridiculously cool putters.
So there are other wood putters then?
There's a handful, yeah. There was, when I first got my idea, I reached out, or I didn't reach out, I just went on Google and like, is anybody else doing this? Like, there's no point in doing it. If no one else does it, there might be a good reason. And there were enough. I saw one guy selling a wood putter that looked pretty cool, but was a weird design for $500. I'm like, let's try it. And now there's a few other, well, there's really not. There's Musty Putters, and there's one guy he's tried to pretty much copy me flat out, but his look more like the Camry of what he tries. And so like that, I'm not even worried about it. I mean, he has very few followers, and it was annoying at first, and now I'm like, I don't think about it hardly ever. Like, I'm not posting, this guy's taking my stuff. I'm like, I don't even care about that dude because I'm making, it doesn't affect my relationship with each client.
Yeah, if the quality's such a differentiator, like, consumers are going to know that.
Yeah.
It gets found out very quickly in all of our industries. Like you can have people that try to copy you, but you can't.
There's been a few that have tried and they always end up going under. Like it's a hard business to make work. Like you have to have some good differentiators. Mm-hmm. And for this, it's the design process that we go through that I've done so many times. And it's learning how to tell a person's story in a design that matches their style. And then all the software back end, that's where the magic really is. I can focus so much time. I can do things like this. I can focus so much time on the individual because the back end is automated so beautifully.
Yeah. I think that Trello idea is really neat because people can follow along. I mean, that turns the customization up a whole nother level. I mean, that's really cool.
They feel like they're looking over my shoulder. I mean, every step of the way, they know exactly what's going on. I post stories on my Instagram all the time of cool things I'm working on and like the problems and the challenges. Like the best feedback I get is when I'm posting some difficulty I'm having. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then I show them the process. I mean, they pretty much almost every phone call I do at the start of it, I don't know what we're going to do for the putter. I'm like, how are we going to make something interesting here? And by the end of the call, it's always like, I'm so excited. We figured it out. There was a fun problem-solving thing. The person's super excited, and then we start creating something from nothing.
Yeah, but having those checkpoints with the clients, you're creating those dopamine hits. Like they're waiting for that next one to come. They're like, okay, well, where are we at today? What's the update?
Yep.
Like that's just a beautiful strategy as you're going through for that client.
Tracking your Amazon package when you order it type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's out of the warehouse.
That's
on the
that
truck.
shop app. Your package has left the
Right.
facility. Woo!
Right? Well,
When's
they
it gonna
get
get here?
that toward the end, but yeah, I mean, they're able to like be very involved. Like I just had a guy today. I'm working on one for him where he wants like a globe with 10. I think it's too many, but we'll see. It's like 10 different monuments, kind of like going around the globe, like redwoods and Mount Fuji. I'm like, Mount Fuji is pretty wide for 10, but whatever. We'll figure that out. And so what I'm going to do is I'll make the design, in Corel and software, and then I'll upload like this is what it's looking like. What do you think? And like, oh, could you change this, that, and the other? No problem. I'll make those changes, and then I mean, honestly, the engraving is what I've probably gotten best at, but it's like the most complicated process. Is like I just did one for Piedmont Park in Atlanta. A guy wanted just an Atlanta themed putter, and so I had to come up with like a cool view of Piedmont Park. It's got a lake, it's got trees, and it's got the skyline in the background. But then he also wanted something for his mom and for the 96 Olympics. So I took the 96 Olympic flame, and his mom loves cardinals. So we put like a cardinal sitting on the Olympic flame. And then I documented that whole process of
torching a bird.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't on fire. It was a very small one.
You roasting the cardinal?
It wasn't on fire. It was just the idea of it. Yeah, if it was more flame, that would have been a problem. Because on the 96 flame, like the flame's like inside, and we had it like sitting up top, and so it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
And so then
Sorry, I'm just trying to picture this in my head. I'm like, is that thing on fire?
I know that would I've done weird things like that before, but no, this one
That'd be a phoenix.
A phoenix. Oh yeah. Ooh, a phoenix.
That would be a fun putter design. Doing a phoenix putter. I've done some pretty cool flame. I'll torch wood sometimes, and then like put orange flakes like inside, so it looks like the wood's still glowing. Done those for firefighters. But like I'll engrave out an area, and then I fill that with a UV resin. But the UV resin's very liquidy. And so I can do purple up top and like orange and yellow and like do streaks of things and then warm it up and then like swirl it and add whites and like it looks like I can either do a Van Gogh style with like crazy swirls, or I can do like almost realistic ripples in the water and stuff. And then once I get it perfect, then I use a UV flashlight and I can cure it. And I can just get crazy detailed with that. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing for the guy with the monuments around there. I've got to come up with all those designs, choose which colors to do, engrave each color separately so they don't blend together. Like I can do the brown, cure that, and then right next to it do black, cure that. Mm-hmm. And just creating all these processes came from someone having an idea. It's like, I don't know if this is possible, but, and then I try it. And then someone sees that and like, ooh, if you could do that, could you do this too? And it just keeps getting more and more ridiculous.
So as an engineer, right, because the very analytical side of your brain is very, very apparent. There's no question like that you're that person. But like I feel like the art side of you is vying for competition or like competitive.
I'm left-handed.
Yeah, is that what it is? So it's just crazy to see the artistic nature that's coming through on your description of everything, but having that engineer base, right? That engineer mind and the analytical side of it. Like, is it always vying for who's going to dominate?
I get bored very easily, and I'm always just looking for a challenge. My mom literally texted me like last week on one of those artwork things I did where I was blending stuff. She's like, I didn't remember you being very artistic when you were little. Like, what is this? Like, you're actually pretty good at that. I'm like, thanks, Mom, but yeah, I don't know. It was kind of one of those things.
It wasn't a full compliment. It was a half compliment.
It was very much, there was a dig there for sure.
Yeah, you're a bad artist, but you're better now. Good job.
It's not bad. No, I mean, I really didn't do a whole lot of artistic stuff when I was little. It was one of those things where I like learning new things and challenging myself. And, whether it was programming languages early on or, robotic stuff or, math. And like I did well in school because I liked the challenge of it. And so now it's, I like the challenge of how could I make a really cool artistic design using the materials I've got available to me. And what's interesting, I prefer like the MacGyver method of like, these are the things we've got. Let's solve the problem with this. Like, even in the engineering world, I would much rather just do the R&D stuff where like, all right, we've got the materials in the room. Let's figure out how to make a spaceship. And let's do that as opposed to like, the world is your oyster, make a spaceship. I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. So kind of same thing with, with making putters. People will come to me and thankfully it happens less, but they're like, just make me a sick putter. I don't care what it is. Just make me something sick. I'm like, no, like, it's too much, man. Like, tell me about yourself. Like, I need some seeds to run with. And so there's still like that analytical, like engineering. I need concrete things to work with. But then from that,
once you have the data points.
Exactly. I need good data, garbage in, garbage out. And if you give me and the other problem is like, if people say, I just want something sick, I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you want something sick that you're going to like, because I can make something that I guarantee somebody is going to think is sick, but you won't. And so like, that's why I don't really make very many putters just like for the fun of it, or like just on spec to see who will buy it, because what I make isn't going to be, love. Like, I can make you a putter that you will absolutely love, and you'll be like, that's really cool, but I wouldn't play that. I can do the exact same thing for you. And so that's another reason why they don't work at scale, because
a lot would be really ezy. You just got to put a Coors Light can in it, and it's good to go. So
Panda Express.
And Panda Express. Orange chicken and Coors Light.
I put a pop top, like the pull tab.
Oh, yeah.
I did it for a Ball Corporation once, and I put like one of those right there. And I've also done one. Actually, there's one I wanted to do. There's been a couple times people have like had an idea, but they just never went through with it. And they wanted like a beer foam themed putter, like, beer with the foam on top. And I figured out if I add water to my acrylic as it's curing, it foams up pretty good, like really good. And so I was like, ooh, I could totally do that. And then I just now think about, like, man, I'm got to find somebody that wants to do that, because like I
think you could sell a decent amount of beer putters. I mean,
let's talk about mass producing putters again. So
yeah, there we go. Right? Hey, there's a will, there's a way. No, it's
funny.
It's always something weird and interesting.
Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, you brought a couple of samples with you. Yeah, show us how this, or show us.
Yeah, so
what
I
you
mean,
got.
these ones aren't. They don't look that great right now because they haven't been glossed yet. So actually, the gloss I get done locally by a guy, Jesse Reinhardt. I made him a putter, actually with a piece of his boat that got crashed. Like, he's one of the hydroplane guys.
Yeah, his wife works here.
Yeah, Kayla, they're awesome. So there's inside this putter there are sand dollars, and then we kind of did a sea foam look on top. There's some sea glass underneath, and just on some olive wood, just cool design. And then same thing, and you can feel how heavy it is. Like, they are not light, and you can see the weights inside it. There's anywhere from like 200 to 300 grams of lead inside each putter to make it actually work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the gloss gets supplied by Jesse, who he had me make him I made him a putter out of the bottom of his boat after someone had flipped it, and it kind of looked like this. Like, it was cool, but it wasn't super shiny and didn't pop. And then grab this, and then he showed me that he could do this with a putter.
Wow! And
I was like, okay, yeah, that goes to the next level. So that one, it has a shark fin as the alignment line on some waves. There's a trident on the bottom.
That's cool.
But yeah, then funnily enough, I got to drive Jesse's boat a couple years ago, and I flipped it myself. So going about 70.
You flipped
it. Yeah, yeah. I was just going a little too hard, and so they told me to be on plane. And like, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, oh, you'll feel the boat kind of go up, and that's when you're on plane. They didn't tell me that happens at like 30 miles per hour. So I was going like 65, and then I went a little bit faster, and I felt it like really go up. I'm like, oh, okay, that's on plane. There it is. So I was just hauling it as hard as I could, hit a little bit of wind, and just went right over. Yeah.
Watch your cord.
Any damage from that to you?
There was a small hole in the boat. They got the engine working that night, so that was good. I thought I broke a rib, but it was just bruised. And no, I just have the worst luck with boats. I have done many stupid, dangerous things in boats and almost died many times. So the further I stay away from the water, probably the better. So this is that F-15 one that all hand painted, and so you can see like, I mean, I hand painted the wings, like have the American flag and all sorts of crazy stuff on there. You've got the treasure map look, and like most of the detail on that you can't even see anymore because it's under acrylic and the optical, like it changes a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that one was
that's amazing.
That one was stupid.
So quick question, because I'm kind of very analytical.
Yeah.
I'm very analytical. So when we're taking a look at this and we see, all the differences, so how do you get this weighted, right?
Yeah.
And don't go too far down Geek Trail because I don't want to lose people.
No, of
but
course.
just like, how do you get this weighted?
How do you think I get it weighted just for the fun of it? What do you think I do?
Well, put weights in it for sure. But,
Good job, Dan.
like the backside, when we take a look at this,
Yeah.
probably on some sort of scale to make sure that it's evenly done.
I want to guess.
Go for it.
Yeah, I am. In Boy Scouts, we did balsa wood models.
Sure.
So you had to be a certain weight. So maybe drill a hole, put the weight in, and then cap it,
Yeah.
sand it.
Where do I put the holes in?
I would think the side, but maybe not. Maybe you bore it out, kind of like a battery in a watch or something.
Yep. How do I do that? You see it? Do you see any seams or anything there? So that's the fun part I do. Like people do it in the shop and they're like, I don't even know. So once I show you, you'll be able to see it. But what we do is I'll take a block and I cut it. I know right where like the bottom, like I'm doing one that has a fly in the back of it. So I find that spot, I cut it on the bottom and I pull it apart. And then I calculate the density of like that block. And I know how much volume of wood and acrylic will be left once I drill the holes. And so I calculate exactly how much weight to add. I get my lead poured here in Merlin. And so then I have all the weight separated out down to the gram. So I'll pull like 232 gram ones, 234 gram ones, 236 gram ones, and a 37. And I'll put those in place. And then what I do is I put it back on and I line everything up so you can see the seam right there.
Oh, yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so then I glue it back up, and then I put that seam at the kind of the crest of the fillet, so it's just kind of rounded right there. And so like that one, you can probably barely even see it, but it's, yeah, there's a seam right there about like a millimeter down. You see that?
Oh, yeah, I got it now.
Yeah, so there's weights under here, but there's a wood cap on there that is lined up perfectly, so you can't even see it.
Wow.
And then everything's just hand shaped down. And as I'm doing it, I'll put it on a scale, see where I'm at, and keep going. Add the wings. We do like 7 different shapes, but most people end up wanting this. It's just a pretty popular one.
Feels very balanced too.
Yeah, and then it's just symmetry. I do matching weights on the sides, and then you can balance this on a pin right on the sweet spot, and then if you want to change, some people want different balance for their putter stroke. And so if you face balance it, then the shaft will, like, it goes in here, but it'll point at the center of mass, and that's the sweet spot. And so then when you're just kind of hanging it like this here, that's just face balance. Like it's points to the sky. But then if I were to shorten this hosel length here, then it's going to rotate more, and then I'll have more toe hang. And as you're putting, you'll feel the toe a little bit more, and rather than just more of a straight back, straight through, it's more of an arc. But that's done with the shaft, not done with the weights in the head.
Is this something that you figured out just from being a golfer and knowing golf, or did you just have to like start tweaking with stuff just with your engineering background and just knowing how physics works and all that?
More engineering. The average golfer does not realize how heavy a putter head is. A lot of times people would like pull up my putters and they're like, oh yeah, it's just it's a wood putter. I'm like, oh no, there's like almost 300 grams of lead in there. Like, no, there's not. And then I actually made a putter that was just wood, like no lead weights inside it for trade shows. And it was always funny. Like if someone was having a bad day and they just needed a giggle, like all they had to do is pick it up. Because every time they pick that up, they'd no way. And they'd giggle every time because it's whippy. There's no weight at the end of it. You add the weights to it and like, oh yeah, that feels like it should. It feels normal. So the average golfer does not realize how heavy. Like I'll ask, how heavy is your putter head? And like, oh, it's got 10 gram weights in it. I'm like, that's like there's certain putters they'll put little weights on the toe and heel, and they'll think like that's the majority of the weight. It's like, no, your putter head weighs 330 to 350 grams. Those are just small little adjustments. So yeah, a lot of it was just the engineering background. I've been doing engineering for a long time. Right out of high school, I got picked up by a guy that has a PhD from MIT in material science. Taught me a lot of the vibrational dynamic stuff. Ran a lot of like finite element analysis, a lot of software stuff, but a lot of hand stuff, and just learning why do things vibrate the way they do. And a lot of that went into like, the reason these work so well is that the wood and acrylic are low density, like about 16 to 17 grams per inch cubed. It's a weird measurement, but it's what works for my measurement stuff. And then the lead is, obviously much heavier. And so I can create a high moment of inertia by moving the weights further away from the face. And so you get, the face itself doesn't want to twist. And so it's a better performance than if this was all metal. You'd have to get a weird alien spaceship looking putter head in order to have the same performance benefits, because I can have such low density, even though it's got the right hardness, it's low density up front and then more density toward the back.
You are a major nerd
Absolutely.
that loves golf.
Love it.
Is
I was gonna
kind of
answer-
good at art.
I was going to answer his question. I was
Well,
like,
kinda.
yeah, the weight's in the back because it totally allows for the follow through. So if you have the less density up front, like, yeah.
You were following that?
What here for people on video? So moment of inertia is really simple. All it is how much weight is how far away from the point you're measuring. So this putter, I'm grabbing the head and I don't have a grip on it, and so I can move this really quickly, easy, right? Super easy. And the exact same system, I'm going to rotate around. Now I'm grabbing by the grip. There's no grip here, and I've got the weight far away, and I cannot move it nearly as fast, right? Because I put more weight further away from the point I'm measuring. So for a putter, what matters is when the ball hits the face, if you're on the sweet spot, even if you have the most unforgiving putter ever, doesn't matter. It's going to go straight. If you hit off center, though, all the weight over here is going to be resisting twisting, right? So you want as much weight as possible far away from the point you're measuring to resist twisting. So with my putters, because it's low density there, high density there, it's going to resist twisting a lot more than your average metal putter. It's just forgiving, like it just is forgiving because of that.
I believe you.
Science.
That makes sense. I like it.
Well, I tried.
Shut up.
I like that answer. Science.
Science. Yeah,
argue
science
with
for
science.
sure.
Let's encapsulate the last 10 minutes of science.
Science. Yeah. No,
There's plenty of marketing buzzwords for. I mean, a lot of companies don't have things to differentiate themselves on, so they try and create like all these fancy terms that just confuse people. And I feel like I know it well enough. I can explain to someone else that they can understand it well enough to be like, no, actually, that does make sense, and it's not just a buzzword. Like, it's just science.
Yes, the science. Did you use anybody local in town to help you with marketing stuff like Moving Mountains or Novum or?
I used both actually.
Both?
Moving
Yeah.
Early on, I used Moving Mountains, and then used Novum as well to do some early videos.
Yeah.
And then just got to the point where like Instagram early on, it was just it was the easiest thing. Like, I would just post stories and it would go nuts, and I would get messages like every day with people wanting to get stuff. So, but yeah, they definitely got me started. It was couldn't do without them. And then I try and do everything as local as possible. Like I've got the glosses done by Jesse. I get my wood from Oregon Burroughs, Great Gall in Merlin. I get my shafts powder coated by Grants Pass Powder Coating, just out on Rogue River Highway. I get my lead from J&S Metals in Merlin. What else? Yeah, I mean, as much as possible.
What about your grips? Where do you get grips from?
Grips I get from Gripmaster. They're just the best grips in the world. They're Cabretta leather, and they're made by a company out of Australia who makes them in Thailand. So that's one of the that. And then I used to get my shafts from True Temper, who made them in the U.S., but I bought them from a Canadian company, even though they were made in the U.S. But then last year, they just stopped making them and didn't tell anybody until like 3 months later. I'm like, you were supposed to ship me like these 3 months ago. What's going on? Like, oh, yeah, no, sorry, we stopped making those. So now I get them from a California company that they get them from China. So that's the thing. I try and stay away from I hated China before it was cool. And so I try to stay as far away from China as possible. All the supply chain stuff that happened barely affected me at all.
Yeah.
But the putter shafts I need, they just don't make them in America anymore.
If you're looking for a theme of today's podcast, I hated China before it was cool.
That's right.
That's
I hated China. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because of science.
Yeah. Dirty commies.
Dirty commies. That's right. Yeah. No, this is super enlightening. We talked a lot when I was in your shop a couple months ago, and I knew that your weights were in the bottom, and I knew how that. So I was waiting for these guys to figure it out. But
it's fun, right?
Yeah.
Like when you know, and they're like looking at it's not intuitive.
Yeah. It's pretty cool though. Do you have any? I know you have a lot of pro golfer friends. Do you have anybody on the pro circuit that's using your putter regularly, or is that not a thing because they're sponsored by these different companies and stuff like that?
Actually, I don't have many pro golfer friends. I have a lot of B-level golfer friends.
Okay.
So like all the YouTube golfers, all the Instagram golfers, like I either have played golf with them or know them relatively well. Good people. On tour though, that's the world of companies paying people a lot of money to use their product so that they can say this is why our product is good is because Joe Smith uses it, right? Mm-hmm. And that works for them and it makes a lot of money. That's great, but my volume is so low that like that world would blow me up way too quickly. Like if someone won on tour with one of my putters, I answered. Like when you call the Bradley Putter Company, it's like, hey, this is Brad. It's not, I don't have an answering service. So I'm not looking for that. And then as far as like, people have won tournaments, local stuff. I have, I've had people on lower tours using my putters, but never anyone I pay and never want to. I'm not requesting that. There's so many golfers in the world and so many golf courses, and like I just want to make putters for cool people who appreciate what I'm doing, and I don't want to make a putter for someone who's like, oh, I saw that your putter won on tour, so I'm gonna have that putter now. Yeah, like that's entirely the wrong reason to. Even though my putters are ridiculously good performers, I don't want someone getting my putter just because they think it's going to make their game that much better. Like, yeah, it will, and I guarantee you love it, and I guarantee you putt well with it, but I want you to come with a cool story. And you're also going to get all the ladies with it. It's guaranteed.
If girls care about golf. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
More and more, a surprising number of wives are getting putters for their husbands. Because they play with them. They play together. It's not just the old man sport that it used to be. With the pandemic, it was one of the few things you could do outside. And a ton of people started playing golf. Yeah. Which is awesome.
Didn't you run into Russell Wilson or make him a putter?
I did. Yeah, actually, I've got this is Russell Wilson's baseball bat. He used that with the Yankees.
Doesn't know what to do with that. He would use that to hit a duck or something with it.
I felt a little weird walking around town with that hanging on my backpack. I'm the wrong idea.
It's like if you're steelhead fishing, which you
totally do that. I should just use that. That'd be great. But yeah, he made a couple putters for a charity tournament he did. One of them sold for $5,000, which is crazy. Wow. Nice. But
did you donate the putters
we donated the putters. Yeah. They ended up buying some ball markers and stuff from us, but we got to go up there. It's funny. We were going to play in the pro-am beforehand, and there was on the tee sheet we were supposed to play with John Smoltz. I was like, no way, that'd be pretty cool, right? Braves pitcher. Yeah. And we get there, and Kevin Sorbo, the Hercules guy, and so we get there and Kevin Sorbo's not there, and there's some short guy, and we're like, what? And the starter's like, oh yeah, Kevin took off. He just wanted to go play by himself. And here's John Schultz, and you guys would be like, wait, what?
Schultz?
And it was this 5'2" guy named John Schultz, and we just completely read it wrong. So we played with John Schultz and had a great time. It was hilarious. We made fun of him the entire time for not being.
You're
John
a great
Smoltz.
guy, John. Sorry.
Yeah. He knows.
You're not John Smoltz, but it's fun. You're.
It was like, come on, no. But yeah. He's has my putters. He played with my putters at Augusta. He take pictures down in playing golf in Mexico, and he's using my putters because he's made it out of his baseball bat. That's just a cool story, so we like telling that and showing it off. Made a bunch of crazy cool head covers for him too. Yeah.
Does it say "Less Ride" on the bottom of it?
Oh man. No, I think it says "Why Not You."
Why not you?
Yeah, he has a "Why Not You" foundation.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat. Did you hear that story that came out about him exercising on the plane on the way to London?
What?
Yeah. So while all of his teammates were sleeping and stuff like that, he was doing a workout on the plane in the aisle, doing lunges and probably burpees and exercising on the plane on the way to London.
Try hard, man.
Yeah, maybe he's always been like that. I don't know, but it just maybe just him moving to the Broncos just kind of exposed him a little bit. But his whole Broncos country. Let's ride. Yeah. That whole thing is just it's just made him look very awkward. Yeah. And then I remember last year he was hurt when he was playing the Steelers, and pregame he ran through his whole routine on the field by himself. In his warm up, he'd be in the huddle. All right, X, Y, double cross, blah blah blah. Yeah, on set, ready, break, right, and then he'd get up and come up in the huddle and look around and start. Oh, 55's the mic. He'd doing his whole thing. It's just
you're supposed to do that. You should have been in your office before we all got here.
Yeah,
running the whole podcast.
Yep.
Visualizing. Yeah, no.
Have you seen the? There's a tracker currently for. Seeing when Russell Wilson gets more touchdowns than he has bathrooms in his house. And he currently has more bathrooms in his house than touchdowns.
Yeah, the poor guys. The Broncos are having a rough season.
It's unfortunate. Hey, the Seahawks did a great trade. Everyone was kind of I don't know about that trade. And everyone's like, and you have picks now? Yeah. All right.
You're halfway good and you have picks? Yeah.
This is
pretty good, actually.
Yeah, no, pretty good. Yeah, I mean, they're tops of their division. And that division's supposed to be one of the best in football. So.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah. Are you a Seahawks fan then?
Yeah, I've always been more of a college fan. Just living in Grants Pass, we're 6 hours north or south from the nearest NFL team. So I went to one NFL game, I think, when I think when Joey Harrington was in town.
Cool.
Up in, playing the Seahawks one time. So, yeah, no, it was always, I went to plenty of Oregon games, ton of Oregon State games, but I just was never big into football. Now, do fantasy football. So, crushed it last week after getting obliterated for a few weeks. 196 points, baby. It was crazy.
That's a super impressive week.
I know, right?
Have
I mean,
you
yeah,
seen-
I think I had 90.
The meme where the girl's talking and she's like, "Oh, your husband's a doctor." Well, my husband manages a fake professional football team.
There's a lot to that,
Oh, I do it too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I tried to do it.
I'm not a doctor, so.
Awesome. But let's get back to just some local stuff before we, get towards the end of this thing. But you were born here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've lived here pretty much your whole life except for when you were in school.
That's right.
So when you were doing your engineering stuff, where were you living?
Here, I mean, there was a base right next to the airport, completely nondescript building, like no signs, no nothing. We were doing,
Top secret stuff.
We were out of building that you would I'm sure you've driven by it and would have never guessed what was. I mean, I think it's a pot building now, so who knows? But all sorts of crazy stuff just right from there.
Yeah, and did you meet your wife here?
So I met her here. She was the hot bridesmaid at one of my friend's weddings, and I was like, I know, right?
Nice,
Pretty proud
bro.
of myself.
Good for you.
And I shot my shot, and she was the first girl I ever dated, and 2 years later, we got married.
Wow.
Yeah, and so she was going to George Fox. I was going to Oregon State, about a 45-minute commute. It was not fun, but we made it work. And, and then brought her down here, and she's a nurse locally, and,
Cool.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. And the Converse family is pretty well known around here. I mean, how long do you guys go back?
Long time. I mean, my grandpa would be 123 this year. Mm-hmm. Like I was the youngest of the youngest, and big family. I mean, it's really nice. Like anytime I go pretty much anywhere or do anything or meet anybody, they're like, "Oh, you related to Alan? Or are you related to Myrtle? Or are you Dan's son?" I'm like, "Yep, yeah, that's me."
Yeah.
And so I mean, the Converse name, it's got a solid reputation. I've done my best not to sully it, but there's only so much you can do. But give
it time.
It'll
We
happen.
got plenty of time.
Yeah, that's why Dan and I moved from California. So we're just like, oh, we got to go.
Aftermath.
That's right. Nobody knows us here.
Right?
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, I was at Lawton's office one day, and I knew that he knew your dad, Lawton did. And I was leaving the office, and I was driving up, what is that, 5th?
Fourth.
I was driving up 4th and passing by Siskiyou Insurance, and I saw your dad out there mowing the lawn of Siskiyou Insurance. And I'm like, what the heck? And I call Lawton. I'm like, why is Dan Converse out mowing the lawn of Siskiyou Insurance? He's like, I have no idea. That's really strange. I do his insurance. Why is he doing that?
It wasn't my dad.
It wasn't your dad. So your dad has a twin brother.
My dad has a twin brother.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep. So that was my Uncle Dick, and he just he's retired now and just helps out some different places landscaping.
I got a lot of Uncle Dicks, by the way.
I know, right? And he just was
By
mowing.
namesake.
It's funny how often they get confused, and like people, I mean, they look exactly the same. There was one time I woke up and my uncle was there in the morning, and I was like it was a school day. Like they weren't doing anything. There was nothing going on. And like 7 a.m, my uncle's there. I'm like, Uncle Dick, what are you doing here? Like I was in high school, and he's like, what are you talking about? I'm your dad. I'm like, whoa! He had shaved his beard to look like my uncle. I'm like, that's not cool. So we called him Uncle Dad for the next week. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's identical. And then there's people that will see him in Fred Meyer and be like, oh, hey, Dick, how you doing? He's like, nope, I'm Dan. Like, no, you're not. Like, we literally worked together for like 5 years. Why are you brushing me off? I'm like, they'll say like, sometimes I'm not myself. But like, it's eerie how close they are.
I walked down and looked, and I was like a half a block away, and I saw him, and I was like, that's not Dan. And I turned around and walked back.
Seriously?
Yeah, didn't I tell you that?
No.
I was like, I got to go over and find out. Like, it was killing me. So I figured it out. I feel pretty good about myself.
That is impressive.
Super
There's
sleuth.
plenty of people that cannot do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty funny for sure. What are you looking at, Lawton?
Well, so I had a quick question.
Yeah. Sure.
So in that Forbes write-up that was in there, you had the opportunity to move back east. I think it was Virginia, right?
I had to travel to Virginia a lot.
Yeah.
There were times I'd go like every 2-3 weeks for a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
The worst I did right after we had Lucy. And I mean, she had a complicated delivery. Well, delivery wasn't complicated. She was on the NICU for like a week and a half after, and brain damage potential. She's perfectly healthy now, but all sorts of stuff. And then they wanted me, like, it was kind of starting to transition away from that, and so they needed me to teach a class. And I left Sunday night at like 7 o'clock, red-eyed over there, taught a class for like 8-9 hours, drove back to the airport, flew home.
No
it
thanks.
was hellacious. And I'm like, yeah, I could. There are a lot of things I would rather do than that. Mm-hmm. And then just being in Virginia, it's a lot of history there, really cool to visit. I couldn't live there. My commute is 4 minutes, and depending on whether the lights are a certain way or not, I will take certain roads to make sure I don't have to wait an extra 30 seconds. It's bad, but I know all the secret tunnels through town, and I just couldn't sit in traffic. I couldn't do it.
It's an insane amount of traffic in Virginia. Were you not like Alexandria type area?
Yeah, well, I mean, right near Dulles. It was
Okay.
Herndon and Chantilly and that whole area. And I mean, it was close enough to the airport, and even that, I'm just like one time we had to go down to Norfolk, and it took forever. There was construction everywhere. I was like, how do people live like this? And I just couldn't do it. I mean, but I don't mind driving. I just don't like driving slow. Like after this, we're going up to Pacific City, and long drive. I don't care. I just don't want to be stuck behind somebody all the time.
Cape Kiwanda.
Dude, yes.
That is one of the most underrated places on the coast, by the way.
We
and
went
not very
there-
many people know about it.
And
Pacific
as they
City.
shouldn't. The place sucks. Never go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. What am I saying?
Right.
Yeah.
No, we were there over summer, and you know those sunsets that you just remember? Like, there was one where the clouds kind of like little cotton balls had descended around, and so like as the pink of the sunset was coming, like just the cotton balls were lit up, and so you had all this pink all around you. And then what was cool is we were down below. You've got like if you go out onto the Cape, and like there's really cool waves and rocks back there, and you see the sunset, and then you climb the Cape and you see the sunset again. You climb further, you see it again as you go all the way to the top, and then you just like 360 surrounded by cotton candy. Unreal experience.
That's crazy.
It's such
amazing.
a cool.
You never been
special
out there?
place.
Yeah, Pacific City. Really cool.
You haven't either?
No, never been.
No
you're from
parking.
Klamath,
It's
so.
it's unless you have someone that lives
Thanks,
there,
Dan.
it is not an easy place to visit.
No.
But it is if you get a spot, it's heaven.
Yeah, it's off the beaten path, but it's pretty cool. And then there's that is it Pelican City?
Pelican
Is it-
Pub
Pelican Pub is there.
right on
You've
the beach.
probably had their beer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
that's
where
where
they
that
brew
is. Yeah,
right there.
that's where it is. Yeah. So
It's so good.
Our coastline, the Oregon coast is amazing. Like, I'll have a second home there one day for sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did an anniversary trip, me and my wife, just in June, where we went from Lincoln City down to Trinidad, down to Monterey, down to Santa Barbara, driving the whole way.
Wow.
That was like, I mean, the Oregon coast is entirely, it's unique, it's unreal. The Northern California coast, if you're driving the 1 and the 101, like north of San Francisco, it almost got ridiculous how like every time you'd come around a corner, you would just like, I'd go, wow, like it looks massive. You're like, it's going to take me hours to drive as far as I can see. Gorgeous views. You're on cliffs. And then once you get to that spot, you go around, same thing again. You're just like, wow. And then you go up into the redwoods and you come back down and do it again. That was one of those, like, I know one of the questions was like, bucket list thing. And first thing I thought was like, well, that's a bucket list thing I just did. And it was really cool. But if you guys get a chance to do the one, like at the very start of the one, have you guys driven Bear Camp Road?
Yep.
Picture Bear Camp Road, extremely well paved, 5 times curvier and 10 times steeper. And that's the start of the one. Like you do it on a map, and like on the map, it just kind of looks a little squiggly here from like, from a long ways up, from 30,000 feet up. And then when you zoom in, it's just like a fractal, and it just keeps getting curlier and curlier and curlier. And yeah, there were a lot of vans struggling to go 20 miles per hour up that thing, and we were just hauling butt up it. But that was not a trip you take your kids on unless they have barf bags.
I grew up in Carmel,
Okay.
so Pebble Beach, all that kind of, and then Big Sur. It's the same kind of coastline. It's just, I mean,
So good.
it's so pretty that it's on Apple's, the Big Sur is the most recent like platform that Apple uses, and it's just all the coastline pictures and the whole
Has
thing.
anybody been stuck going through Big Sur with a car going 27 miles an hour in front of you?
Yeah,
It
several
is the
times.
most frustrating thing on earth. I would rather be stuck in Virginia traffic.
I mean, at least you're in a pretty area, and I mean, we've got the Tesla. My wife drives for work a ton. Like, I mean, we got it year and a half ago, and she already has 70,000 miles on it.
Wow.
But the autopilot, for when you're stuck behind someone, you just double tap, and you are just enjoying the view. It's heavenly. And then when there's a passing lane, in 1 second you're past them. God bless it. Like, technology it's
God bless
amazing.
Tesla.
God bless Tesla.
Hey, American technology, made in America, like American ingenuity. It's a glorious. I see people on Facebook all the time poo-pooing Teslas. I'm like, you obviously have not driven one. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah, I rode in my first Tesla just last week. Went down to Southern California, met with a friend of mine, and he had a Tesla.
Yeah.
And he's like, watch this. I was like, so I'm just like, oh my God, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, doing that trip, there were plenty of times where we would be behind literally like 5 RVs, and you'd have a relatively short section to pass them, and we didn't speed at all, but we got past them very quickly.
Yeah.
And then you're going back to just slow and safe again.
I'll be honest, I get just as much enjoyment riding with Lawton in his giant diesel truck when he tries to turn around and has to make like 20 turns in order to do
Austin
it. So-
Powers style.
Not a diesel. It's a V10 Triton.
Oh, my bad. All right.
How
Get it
dare
right.
you?
It sounds like a diesel, but it burns more fuel than.
Right.
Yeah, we call it the space. We were at Fort Vanoy, and a couple years ago at the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
And he like pulls into the parking lot, and there's like kids and stuff walking by, and he gets out of the truck. I'm like, how'd you park that spaceship in here? And the kid looks and he goes, that's a spaceship? Yeah, the thing's massive.
Call it the F-250 gunship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's big.
That's awesome.
It's a big horse for sure. So you're going to be mad at me. I've never been to the Cultured Palate.
You are going to. It has to happen.
So there's...
We
Talking
literally
about
got
all this-
lunch today from there.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I want to do as like just a follow-up for this podcast. I would like to go to lunch, the 4 of us at Cultured Palate,
Yeah.
and then just go spend an hour hitting golf balls in your simulator.
Let's do it.
I
Deal.
think that'd be fun, just as a
and
follow-up.
it's a full TrackMan simulator. I just had a guy on it this morning. Like, ridiculous how many data point. Like, every single pro has a TrackMan behind it, and I got the wise idea of putting a ridiculously top-line simulator in a little shop in Grants Pass. So,
Yeah.
way overkill, but stupid amounts of fun. And then, literally right downtown, I'm next to Rogue Barbers, and I walk pretty much everywhere. And then, I walk to Culture Palate because it's right there. And
And you have your own sandwich there.
it's not a sandwich. It's better than a sandwich.
Oh.
It's their...
Please tell us.
It's so good. So, like, they make...
I haven't had lunch today, so please
you
continue.
need to head there. So, like rice and then mojo sauce, which is like onions and like just really good flavors.
Goodness.
And then they have this like completa bowl that's like too much food for lunch. And
no
so I'm
such
like,
thing.
it's a lot of food for lunch. I'm like, I just need it's like what I get is still a lot of food, but this was too much. I'm like, can you guys just make a lunch size? Like, oh yeah, I guess we do. I'm like, you want to name it the Bradley? They're like, I guess we could do that too. And so their lunch size for the completa is a Bradley. And so I go in there and I order a Bradley, and it makes me happy every time.
I'm pretty sure I've never been to a restaurant and ordered the lunch size and been happy with the portion size.
I mean, you're a big guy, like okay. I mean, it's the box is like that
No,
big.
hold on.
It's
I
packed
gotta
full.
throw something in here. So we went to Casablanca, like when they opened up, relatively new, the one in town,
Yeah.
and literally Daniel's plate looked like a pyramid from Egypt. And like the lady comes over and she's like, "Will you guys be needing a bowl or like a to-go box?" And Daniel just looks over, "I won't, he will," and like just kept on eating. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I can eat.
That's impressive.
So the fun story. So when I was in high school, I had this Italian girlfriend, and her mom and dad were Italian, obviously. And for my birthday, they wanted to like make a nice Italian dinner and like spaghetti and stuff like that. But they wanted to have an eating contest with me. So it was me against my girlfriend and her mom. Her dad didn't want to participate. So it was the two of them against me. I ate 8 pounds of spaghetti.
Wow.
Oh no.
Yes, 8 pounds of spaghetti, and they had like barely eaten 5 between the two of them, and so they ran out of spaghetti. Like they made a lot, and I told her mom, I said, you know, you could just make more spaghetti, or you can quit. One of the two.
Savage.
And she goes, okay, we concede. I go, okay, can you pass the birthday cake? And I ate a big slice of
Did
birthday
you just
cake.
take your fork and drop it?
Right. Drop the fork, walk away.
Yeah, I can definitely eat like crazy. I can just put it down.
One time in college, we had to track our food for a day, just with health class, and I wanted to just destroy the curve, like whatever they were gonna do with that data. I just wanted to mess it up. So I went to the biggest breakfast place on campus, ate like a 4,000 calorie breakfast, like everything I could possibly do to stuff myself. Same thing for lunch. Went to Mongolian Grill, got as much as I could. I think I did about 9,000 calories that day.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not a large dude now, and I was really skinny then, and I just wanted to turn in a 150-pound kid.
Yeah.
Just ate
They're like
9,000
9,000.
calories.
What's up with this outlier over here?
I know, right?
Did you track it wrong?
Yeah. As in the engineering school, the engineering classes were freaking tough, very difficult. And so anytime I took a class that wasn't that, I either was not paying enough attention or just trying to mess with things just because I was bored.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, yeah.
That's a sign of intellect.
It would have been
surpass
smarter
that.
to not do that, but yeah, I mean, it's also surprising how many classes I literally slept through in the back, not smart. But I mean, I graduated with great grades and all that. I just I could have applied myself more.
Yeah, your diploma doesn't have tally marks for naps in the back of the room or something.
It'd be a lot cooler if it did.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Well, we're getting towards the end here. The last question I wanted to ask you was, what advice would you give anyone, really? You wrote it down in the questionnaire that we send you.
Yeah. Pretty much every book and a lot of the people on Instagram and whatever are pushing the hustle life. I mean, hometown hustle, it's a thing.
Right.
You've got to do it a lot. You've got to put yourself out there. But what a lot of people miss is you can always make more money. There's all those stories about someone who, made their first million at 55 or 70 or whatever. But you cannot go to a person who's 55 and whose kids are all grown up and say, hey, spend more time with your 5-year-old. You can't do that. That is literally impossible. And so that time with your family is the most important thing. You cannot get those years back, and when they're gone, they're gone. So that's something just to be very aware of. And then early on in the business, I was trying to create this business for the sake of my family, but also at the detriment of my family. I was taking time away from them that they needed from me to try and build something that would help them in the future, but hurting them in the present. And so that's something that thankfully I got away from before it became too harmful. But the trips I was doing and the amount of time I was spending on it, yeah, sure, it's great. Spend a ton of time early on to automate things that you don't have to spend time later. But there comes a point where you are taking too much time for your family. And I mean, it is not fun to have your kids, resent the thing you built because you cared about that more than your kids, right? So that's my big thing is, whether it's, friends, family, whatever is important to you, you can't let your business or your career or whatever you're doing come before that, because you can always build that later. When your kids are off to college, you're going to be bored. Build something then. And you've got to do enough to provide for your family, and that's definitely a thing. But time is the most valuable asset.
Yeah. Wow. And it's not something that a typical guy our age comes up with. I mean, where did you get that from?
A lot of real life experience. Things were hard between me and my wife for a while. We did, went through couples. We did counseling before we got married, and then we scheduled it after that. Every year go in and make sure we're talking about these kind of things. But between that and then just talking with her and talking with my family and just kind of building a better understanding of it, I've seen too many people with successful businesses who don't have a good relationship with their kids or their wife. And I very much look forward to going home and spending time with my wife and kids. That's my favorite part of the day. And so I love my job and all that, but that's a legacy that I'd be proud of. If I had a just, $1 billion business, but my family was not, we weren't close, that would be a failure in my book.
Don't you even have a spot in your business to like hang out? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, my family, like I've got in the back, I've got a slide. I've got, little car, like to drive around. There's bikes and stuff. My daughter was there, my 1-year-old, she was there. Wednesday morning, like I'll bring her in, like, I'm cleaning stuff and she's just toddling around and like playing with everything. Everything there is, as kid friendly as can be. And then we have that spot, we can do parades there. And like, anytime there's something going on downtown, we just head into the shop. Like it's very much a second home kind of hub for us. And yeah, that's something I can be proud of. And it's very important that my kids feel like they are not like my wife's the most important thing. And if the kids are most important and that gets in the way, that's never good. But yeah, wife's the most important. And then with my wife, we take care of the kids together.
Wow. Wise words, man. Very cool. Why do you think that is actually? I'm going to open up another conversation here. I mean, why do you think it is that, we're called the hometown hustle, but not like because you need to go hustle, but more because there are cool people in this town that are hustling and making it work and doing stuff. And it doesn't have to be hustle and work, but they're, clearly.
Well, there's a lot of ways to hustle with your family. Like it's, like you can't be lazy in really anything. Like if you're lazy with your family, like if you're lazy at work so you can go home and be lazy, like that doesn't work. Like I'm still hustling when I'm at home. Like I'm being very intentional with, helping out with all the chores. Like, my wife doesn't have any chores that are just hers. Like we share everything. And when it comes to the kids, it's not my wife's job to do. Right now I'm the one that's putting our 1-year-old down because I love the snuggles. And so I do that. Well, we'll do bath time and stuff. Like there's a few things that are typically spread out.
Is that after the shot of whiskey or?
During, like got a bottle there and
that was our pre-podcast conversation about if you start drinking whiskey, you get real cuddly.
I love a good cuddle. Like, I didn't drink until I was 23. Like the day after got married is the first time I had a drink. I just knew it. I didn't want to like mess with that at all until I was married, and it was disgusting. I had a white wine with sushi. Ooh. It was I don't know why my wife. She had drank before. I don't know why she let me do that. It was a terrible idea.
I know you guys would be friends.
Yeah.
Dan's a fan of white wine. But I guess just getting back to my question, what is it? Is it an ego thing? Why do people feel like they need to just like crush it? And I don't want to throw names, but it's like they just like they want to be Gary Vee or Grant Cardone
and so the hustle part of it, I think it has a bad nomenclature in some cases because the hustle then is now the focus, right? Not the family time, not the wealth that brings you opportunity. The hustle and the grind becomes the focus, right? And then when you don't know why you're grinding and you don't know why you're hustling, you're just caught in the mix, then it becomes very negative, right? It just has that self-fulfilling prophecy where, I don't think hustle the way that you're saying or communicating because it's not all encompassing. Like the hustle that takes your life away from you because the hustle becomes the focus, that's the problem.
Yeah. There's an interesting parable story thing where a guy is fishing off a pier in Mexico, and this little kid walks up by him and sits down and throws his lure in. And the guy looks over at the kid, and he's like, "Hey, what's your name?" He's like, "Oh, I'm Johnny." And hey, Johnny, you know what you need to do in your life? Like, if you want to really make it, what you need to do is, you like fishing, go get a fishing boat, and then catch a bunch of fish and save up that money, buy another boat. And then, once you've done that, then you can get your office and just buy a bunch of boats and do all this, and you can create this big fishing conglomerate and make a ton of money. And then what you can do is when you retire, you can come back to this spot and you can sit on this dock and fish every day like you're already doing. Like, what's your end goal there? Like you're building this huge thing so you can go sit on a dock in Mexico and fish every day. If that's your goal in life, go sit on a dock and fish in Mexico every day and build a life there. Like, you don't need to hustle just for the sake of hustle. Figure out what you want in life. Like, not everyone wants to be, big family guy. They want to do other things. That's great. Figure out what you want to do and do that. Like, people say all the time, like, oh, you're so lucky to have this job where you get to play golf and make cool stuff. I'm like, I figured out what I like to do. I like working with my hands. I like talking with people. I like coming up with cool ideas. I like doing the artwork. I like all this stuff. And so I built a job that fits those bills. There was no luck involved. It was, I built exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I've seen that theme as you've been talking today. It's everything. Well, first off, you want something ridiculous, right? Ridiculous putter, all that. But you've also designed your life the way that you've wanted it. And I feel like you're very committed to making sure that you execute successfully on making that life. I feel everything is very intentional on what you do. When people say that, it's a catchphrase. It's very kitschy, right? Be intentional. But I feel like every move that you're making, right? Not scaling, not doing all of these things. You have your path that you see in front of you, and damn it if anybody's going to knock you off that line.
But and I'm not to say I didn't try different things and experiment. Like, hey, will this work? Does this work? Should I try that? And it's not for ignorance sake. It's for, I tried a lot of those things and it wasn't fulfilling. It didn't work. It wasn't the direction that things needed to go. And so I was more than willing to try things, fail fast, and not fail intentionally, just fail quickly and move on to the next thing and try something until I found what works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. It's really neat. Pretty enlightening, man. Yeah. Learned a lot about you today. Really cool. Should probably wrap this thing up.
I got to go get packed up and go to Pacific City. So.
Yeah. Cool. Cape Kiwanda.
Where is that again?
Cape Kiwanda, baby.
Yeah. Don't tell anybody.
Don't go there.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
So locally, I'm 310 Southwest 6. I mean, I'm right on 6th Street between H&I, like across from the kitchen company. It's very much a speakeasy vibe. Like, you'll walk by, if you're in Grants Pass, you've driven by hundreds of times, and you probably don't know I'm there. As soon as you realize I'm there, you walk in the door, and it is, Gates Furniture's in there.
It's super cool.
You notice. It's really nice. It's, it's a stupidly cool place.
It's also by appointment only.
Yeah, it's ambiguously open. So if you're willing to push on the door, I'll talk to you. But if you're just antique shopping and want to come in and look at random stuff, it's just me now. I don't have time for that. And then, Bradley Putters on Instagram, bradleyputters.com. Pretty easy to find. And then, I post, all the pictures and all the stories, all that cool stuff is on Instagram.
Yeah, very cool. We good?
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks,
Awesome.
Brad.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time.
A lot of fun. You guys are good dudes. I'm excited to go eat some cultured palate now.
Yeah,
Sounds
cultured
good.
palate, and you can laugh at us swing at golf balls because I'm not any good. So
That's super athletic people often suck at golf, and you'll have like an 8-year-old who's a twig who will crush it past you. And that's just my favorite thing about golf is it's the perfect sport. You can have someone who is super athletic and
let's use that term loosely, first of all. But,
I mean, you're
okay.
Relatively speaking,
I may
pounds of spaghetti.
look athletic, but there's nothing athletic
you'll
about
look
this.
it, but it is such a humbling sport. And then you can have an 80-year-old play an 8-year-old fairly with the handicapping and all that. And then every single town has multiple golf courses to go explore, and then you get to go walk in nature. It's just a great sport.
Usually with a beer in your hand, Lawton.
God bless it.
God bless. All right. Thanks, Brad.